Hey everyone, Joe here. Today we're going to take it another step back and focusing on the basic tools in the Develop module. This is the second video in a three-part series to help users better understand Lightroom. The first video we just recently done last week was on importing and managing files. Today's video is going to be on the Develop module and the tools within the Develop module. Next week's video, and the final video, will be on exporting files and understanding the image formats. So this is going to be a pretty long tutorial, so let's get started. Let's go ahead and open an image that we're going to be using. All you have to do is just click on it one time, then click on Develop. As you can see, this quickly brings our image into the Develop module. Now let's first start over here at the Navigator. And the Navigator has multiple ways we can view our image. By default, it's set up to fit, and normally by default when you click on it, it pulls it into a 1:1 ratio. Now you can grab the little slider over here in the Navigator and you can move your image around this way. Okay, another way is to use a little hand and you can pull it side to side. Okay, but that may cause an issue if you're using tools, so this can be always very helpful. Okay, but you can also go down to 2:1 or any multiple options, even down to 11:1 if you so desire. Another great option is fill. Fill will fill the whole window frame in with the image. But I prefer 1:1 or fit. Okay, below the Navigator you'll see presets. Now many of these are the basic Lightroom presets that you can use yourself. You also have some snapshots. I don't have any snapshots in mine because I don't use it. You also have a history bar here, and this goes through all the different history, the adjustments and stuff that you can use. This can be very helpful if you're not sure what you just recently changed. Okay, I'm going to clear my history, and you can see my history is now cleared. Okay, and below that you also still have access to your collections within the Develop module. Okay, now let's close that out since I don't use it too often. Let's go over here to the other side of the screen. At the top here we have our histogram. The histogram is probably the most important tool that we have to use here. And that's because it shows us the information or the data within the photo and how it's been handled. Okay, a properly exposed image will have a little more data towards the center and less towards the highlights and the shadow areas. Okay, a lot of people don't realize that you can also adjust a lot of the image in the histogram itself, but just clicking on it and moving it from left to right. Okay, as you can see, we can also move our shadows within the histogram here, as well as the highlights, and in the fars we have our whites, and at the back end we have our blacks. So yes, the histogram, you can actually use it instead of the sliders down here, but I prefer to use the ones down here just because it's easier to manage. Okay, then we have other tools here. Now I mentioned the Smart Preview option in last week's video, and here's what I want to explain Smart Preview a little more. You notice here it says Original Photo. If we click on it, we now have a dialog box comes up that says Build a Smart Preview from this photo. So for example, if we have this main negative file on an external hard drive, but we want to continue working on this on our laptop, as we say go to an internet cafe or a coffee shop, we can build a Smart Preview and it will build that image into Lightroom's library without having to have the hard drive connected. So that way we can edit a few files on the go. So here's the option if you wish to use it. I use it occasionally, but not too often. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click cancel on that. Now we have our cropping tool here. Now you can crop, straighten your images here. You have your aspect, and I can use this right here to choose where I want cropped in at. Okay, double click on that or hit escape, and go back. We have our angle. Angle is really nice because we can see, pull this across the ocean line here and straighten our image. Okay. Or we can double click on angle and then reverse the changes we just made. Okay. We also have our aspect lock, and this is sometimes annoying to me because I'm used to keeping it locked. So if it comes unlocked, you can actually change the aspect ratio, and I'll demonstrate here. Locked here, if we pull down the top, you will notice it keeps, the original as shot aspect ratio. Pull down the corner, same. Pull from the side, the same. However, unlocked, you can do whatever. Also, if you click, original or as shot, you have custom options here, like 16:9, which is normally for like widescreen computer monitors, and you can move it around within there. You can also change it. Another popular one is like 5:7 or 8.5:11 or 8:10s. If you're using 4:5 photos or 8:10 photos, this can be a great option for you to be able to crop in. Okay. I'm going to put mine back as shot. Okay, so that's explained. Let's move on here. We now have our spot removal tool. I think y'all have probably seen me use this before. Say we can click on like this spot right here, and it will try to remove it for us. Now we currently have it on heal, so we can try to see if it'll heal a little bit. Or we can click clone. Clone looks better for that one, so bam, done. Okay, now we have a red eye reduction tool here. This is pretty much simple. Somebody in your photo has a red eye, then just click on that and click on their eyeball. Obviously there's no people in this photo, so it's useless to even bother with here. Get pet eye, red eye, choose options, probably straightforward. Here's our gradient filter. This is probably a tool that you'll use excessively a lot. Okay, and the two following tools after are pretty much the same, just different ways of doing it. And I'm going to pull down my gradient filter here. Okay, now here's what it goes by. It's just a gradient filter. There's nothing spectacular about it. Here I can show you where it's darkening the exposure in the top, or we can get it and slide it the other way, make it brighten up 4 stops. But it also has contrast, highlights, and all the other tools. Also a little defringing, which is very useful. Now it doesn't have to go from top to bottom. We can click on delete it, and we can pull it from left to right. Okay, we can actually pull this in any angle we want, or any length. Let's say we just put it right there. As you can see, this can become very useful. Okay, one more thing about it. Let's say we want a little bit different color in the sky. Let's say we just pull that one down to the water level. You have the option to press shift, and that will keep it level, either perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal. You can even add color. So if we want to add a lot of, say, reds, for example, we can add that to the sky. We can even grab and pull it down even further and add a lot of pinks into the photo. Okay, now I'm not going to use that one. Just go ahead and delete it. I just want to explain it. The circular filter does pretty much the same. The difference is this darkening here. Normally, the outside is darker right in the center. This would be good if you want to do custom vignetting. We can even do an invert mask and have it do right the opposite towards the center. This can be very helpful and has lets you do a lot of special lighting effects. As you say, it's the same as the other one, as the gradient filter. The brush tool is also the same, except it allows you to paint on certain areas. Let's say I want to paint in the sky here and just add a little orange. And we can also adjust our exposure down right there. And you see it looks horrible right here, but you can find a lot of uses for this. Now they got those explained. Let's go down here and now you get your feather, the flow, density, auto mask, not auto mask. You can use erase. So you can use that brush tool for quite a few things. Now let's close it here. Let's get on to explain a few other things. We have our white balance. Now you can choose as shot, auto, daylight. These are all presets. So let's click on tungsten here. And see it turned everything blue. That way if you had like yellow street lights, so kind of, you know, counter against it. Now let's say daylight here. And you can change it to a different tone. Now I'm gonna put mine back as shot. But you could also slide the temp, you know, your stuff manually. I'm just up mine to about 45 here. And 45 works pretty good for me. So you can manually do it. Also, if you have a white balance card, you can use your dropper and click in the area and it automatically adjusts as well. Now I'll adjust mine back down to say about 45. And then temp. There we go. Now of course we have our exposure. I'm pretty sure that's self-explanatory. Go 10 stops each way. Then we have our contrast. Contrast will darken the blacks and brighten the whites more, adding more contrast or separation between the two. Okay, now we have our highlights. Highlights can be very useful to pull back a lot of the detail in the skies here, or anywhere that's kind of blown out but not completely white. As you can see, we can blow the sky out with it, and that might be an effect you might be looking for. But for more, you know, normal photos, a lot of people like to bring it down. How much you bring it down actually depends upon your style of editing. But you do the shadows the same way. You can see the whole area over here on the beach. You can bring back a lot of that lost detail, or we can pull it down and basically silhouette it out. Now I'll bring mine up just a little bit here. Okay, whites. White's this upper area here. The most pure white. You don't want to break that out, but you want to bring back a little bit of white, adds a little more detail. And you can adjust your blacks as well. Okay. Now a lot of people confuse clarity with contrast. I just showed you how contrast works, and I'll show you again. Make it overall dull, very flat image, or very highly contrasted area where the skies are extra bright and the shadows are extra dark. Okay. Now clarity is going to do this on a more micro level. As you can see, the ocean here, which is one reason I chose this photo, you can make it all very smooth, or like in them bring out more of the detail and like in the ocean waves and stuff, so it doesn't give it more a grungier look, a little bit different than the other. The way it handles the contrasting is different. Now a lot of people like to throw in a lot of contrast, and it can help if your lens is not performing very well, but you don't want to get too carried away with it, but a little bit's nice. Okay, now vibrance. A lot of people confuse vibrance and saturation as being the same. They are not. And let me demonstrate here. I'm gonna pull vibrance all the way up. As you'll notice, it kept a lot of the colors that are already in the image, but it also darkened them slightly, just ever so slightly, but enough to darken them in. Now watch saturation. Saturation just throws in lots more color, but doesn't adjust to make them darker or whatnot. I want a proper word there, or it's not whatnot, or just doesn't make them darker. It just throws in just tons of extra color. It's like basically like spilling the paint bucket. Well, vibrance is more of a micro level. adjusting just the colors that are already in the image without throwing in too much extra, and kind of darken them in. That's the reason I like to use Vibrance quite a bit, especially when I'm editing flat, raw images. Okay, now that I've talked about those, let's go down here and talk about the tone curve. Now, the tone curve can be used quite often to get a lot of those washed out photo effects and stuff, and also add a little contrast to your image. A little medium contrast there, strong contrast. Now you have multiple ways of changing this. You can do this manually on your own, create your own contrast curve, or you can move the sliders. If you don't see your sliders, check over here at this little button. If it's darkened in, you probably only see this. But you click on that and it'll give you these sliders. Sliders can be helpful to somebody that's new. I'm just going to leave mine on medium contrast for this one. And let's close that and move on. Okay, now we have one I use quite often, Hsl, hue, saturation, luminescence. Now you can choose each individual one by themselves to keep from being too complicated, or click on all and be able to see them all at the same time. Now for example here, if I want to turn all the yellow in the sky red, I can go over here, I believe it is orange, and move it over to the red. And you can see it threw in a lot of red. We'll go back the other way and it kind of makes it look more yellowish green. Now I don't use these too often, but they are sometimes helpful, especially when dealing with plants and florals. Okay. Now saturation I do use quite a bit. For example, here I want to kick up the orange in the sky a little bit more. I can simply slide it over. Now, I can also darken the orange or blow it out by using luminescence, luminance. Okay, so that's the option there for you. Bring this back just a little bit. But you also have the option to go to color. Now color lets you adjust each color's saturation luminance on an individual basis. I don't use this one too often because I prefer the Hsl one, although they kind of do both of the same thing, except this one does, probably a little bit differently. Depends on what you're used to using. I prefer the Hsl better. Now we have B&W, which is black and white. And this is how you can adjust the colors for black and white photos. For example, got a lot of the yellow sky here, and you can see blue it out or darken it down. And got the auto button here, and it automatically adjusts it. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Okay, now let's close that on out. Go over here to split toning. Let's say I want to turn the skies blue. I can do that. And anywhere in the shadow areas, I want red or orange. So I can give you kind of a movie-ish look, depending on what you're going for. And you can adjust your balance here this way. Okay. Of course, you got your saturations down here. And you can move your sliders this way if you want to adjust them that way, instead of clicking in here. And just like all the others, you can double click on them and reset them back to 0, or just turn it off right here. Okay, now I have another video on split toning, cinematic street photography. Be sure to check that one out. Now let's get over here to detail. Now a lot of people complain about the image here being all zoomed up close or zoomed out. You can just change it by double clicking or single clicking on it. You can use this tool right here to go over here, say for example these people stand on the beach, and zoom into them. Or you can zoom out. Okay, now let's get down here and talk about sharpening. This is fake sharpening. A little bit's kind of okay if your lens is not performing as well as you would hoped it would. But I don't like to bring it up too much unless I really have a botched up image. Okay, now let's go over here and do a little information about radius. The radius is the area around the detail. Now you can see when I click on the slider here and hold my Alt or the Option button, depending if you have a Mac or PC keyboard, you can see in the image where it's affecting. Okay. Now you got the detail determines how much of that masked image is getting pulled out. Now that's not to be confused with actual masking itself. Now watch this. All the white area is getting affected. All the black area you see here is not being touched by the fake sharpening. So it's good to find like a happy medium of areas you want to kind of insinuate a little bit better, or actually pull out that seem to be losing detail. This can be helpful. Okay, noise reduction. This is something you always want to make sure you use. Now I have an ISO 100 here, so normally I just stick mine on, say, something around 10. Okay, 10 normally works the best for me. I normally don't mess with detail too much. If you want to pull out more detail because your image is real heavily noised up and you have to pull this up very high, you can use that to pull back, and the contrast can help some. But normally it's really not needed. The default 50 is normally pretty good. Now color is color noise. This would be those little, if you're shooting like dark areas, underexposed areas. Let me see if I can't pull some out here. You may not be able to see them here. And this is actually a pretty good shot image, so there's not none. But this can be used to get rid of all those magenta and specks and green specks in the shadow areas of the image. Normally pull that up, say about 50. Normally works pretty good. Okay. Not enough on detail here. Let's go down here to lens corrections. Okay. Now I already have a full video on manually adjusting your lens. I'll find that and I'll put a link for it in the description if I can, or I'll put it in the information tab at the top. But this is where, if you don't have your lens, doesn't have a profile, you can adjust it here. Something I do have to do occasionally with some of my manual lenses. And you have color here, chromatic aberration, if you have any chroma, which isn't any in this lens. But if you see like an area where you, on a white or black contrast area has magenta, click on this little brush. You can go down to that area, find it, click on it, and then it'll really remove that chroma out for you. It really does help. It's a great tool. Of course, profile here. Mine already picks up my Sigma 18 to 35, so don't have to worry about anything. Of course, you got distortion and vignetting here if you want to adjust it, fine tune it yourself. Now, basic here, it has those options, plus constrain crop if you want it, and also has the option to be able to say auto adjust, get your horizon level and stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, I click on auto. It may not move it because I done adjusted a while ago. Click on auto, click off. As you can see, it moved it a little bit. Let's just leave it on. Okay, now let's go down to effects. We're almost to the end here. Now, this is what's called post-crop vignetting. This is so you can make those darker in areas. I use this quite often. Some people might prefer that look. Don't forget you have color priority and paint priority. Give each one of them a different look. Normally I actually prefer like a color priority when you're making them bright, and I prefer highlight priority when adjusting that, adding vignetting. I'm not going to use it on this image, but it's there. You can let you adjust also the midpoints, the roundness, the feather, and the highlights. Another tool here is grain. Grain can give you that nice old look to the image, real grainy. I like it for black and white. It's not so much for colors, but a lot of people really like grain. Now here's the new tool, dehaze. A little dehazing can go a long ways. It's another tool to help people who shoot like through a window or rainy season, very lot of moisture and stuff in the sky. So you got a little bit of sky, like it's just tropical area. You can pop in just a little bit. A little bit helps just fine. Okay, well, let's close it out. Now remember, dehaze isn't in Lightroom 6. It's only in Lightroom CC. That's where Adobe's starting to really separate the two. Okay, now here we have camera calibration. This is something I don't use a lot, but I do find myself using when taking some floral photos. For example, if I'm shooting roses, I might want to drop the saturation here just a touch, say about -2, -4, to kind of help, you know, because red seems to be really blown out on Canon cameras. So sometimes I find myself adjusting it down. But you can choose it, you know, from Adobe Standard here, the Camera Faithful, Camera Landscape, pretty much like the ones in your camera to an extent, kind of generic. You know, Adobe Standard is normally what I'll leave it on, but you can change it. Let me just change over here and say neutral, for example. See if it actually changes. Yeah, just a little bit. Or Camera Portrait. As you see, the colors change just a little bit. I'll leave mine back on Adobe Standard. Now, you also have different processes. You know, we're using 2012, so the current one's up to date. Or up to date, closer enough. Like I said, sometimes I have to adjust the reds down just a little bit on the saturation here. Just like some roses and stuff that kind of red seems to be really blown out to me and unnatural looking. So that's color camera calibration for you. And that's it on develop tools. You can see we kind of edited our little file here and it looks fairly nice for the most part. But I really hope this helps everybody understand the develop tools more. Now remember to look for next week's video when I'll go into exporting files and really explaining the image formats, you know, in detail to let you decide which ones are better when you give those to your client or just have them printed. So until next time, everyone, I do appreciate you watching. Please give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up's always highly appreciated. And if you're not a subscriber yet, be sure to subscribe. Subscribing is free. It's for you. It lets you know when I release more videos. And until next time, everyone, thanks for watching.